Welcome to the Herbal Spot, the podcast of the Biocultural Education and Research Program, where we invite our stakeholders, professionals, and scientists working in the field of plant conservation, also ethnobotany, natural product research, all the beautiful things that plants afford us. We do this podcast so that we share with our listeners and enhance their awareness of the true value of a plant resource. Today, I'm extremely happy to have as our guest Mr. William Cinea, who is a noted environmental activist in the Caribbean, and we're going to find out the extent of his work as I read a bit of his bio. So I want to just welcome you, William, before I share a bit of your bio with our listeners.
Good morning, Sonia. It's a great pleasure for me to be with you in this podcast today.
Thank you so much. William stands as an esteemed advocate for Haitian biodiversity, demonstrating an unwavering commitment to the nation's unique ecological heritage. He is the visionary founder of Eco Entrepreneur Consultant, an institution dedicated to integrating nature-based solutions within business frameworks. One of his landmark achievements was the establishment of the Botanical Garden of Cays in 2003. Despite its humble beginnings with a budget of less than $50, under his leadership, it flourished into a premier hub for botanical research and education in Haiti. In parallel, Mr. Cinea founded Nature Design Haiti, a consultancy that emphasizes sustainable design and landscaping, melding aesthetics with ecological prudence. Furthermore, as the president of the Haitian Society of Botany, he has been instrumental in advancing and disseminating knowledge about Haiti's diverse plant species and their significance. His commendable efforts in conservation were internationally recognized in 2020 when the Kinship Fellows Program lauded him as a leading figure in global conservation. In addition to this, his credentials are further bolstered by advanced training under luminaries such as Tony Robbins. With his strategic vision and unwavering dedication, William continues to be a beacon for sustainable practices, underscoring the importance of Haiti's rich biodiversity. Well done, William. I'm
Thank
reading
you,
and I'm
Sonia.
extremely proud to hear of all of your accomplishments and especially so as you're working to preserve a Caribbean resource and ultimately a Caribbean heritage. So,
Thank
yes, we share a common Caribbean history, and I wonder how that would have influenced your journey into conservation and environmental activism.
Thank you, Sonia. Let's say I didn't know that the Caribbean has a lot of biodiversity of plants. I studied in Dominican Republic and I graduated in 2000 and went back to my country. And when I went back to my country, I started something called Green Haiti. It's for reforestation of Haiti. As most of people know, Haiti, it has a lot of environmental issues. But in 2003, I went to Israel and I visited a beautiful garden. And I said, this is something we can do in Haiti too, because Israel, they don't have water and they don't have the huge diversity we have. And I went back to Haiti and I started the Case Botanical Garden. At this that I didn't have money. With less than 50 US dollars, I went a little of land to start the garden. So when I start studying about plants, and I know the Caribbean has more than 5,000, 10,000 species, and 71% of them are endemic. And I start to learn about the history of botany in the Caribbean and the world, and I start to fall in love for my region for its biodiversity. So with the Kai Botanical Garden, I keep learning, I keep studying plants, and I discover that most of the plants that we have, they are medicinal. So we have few species, may I say less than 1,000 or 2,000 trees in the Caribbean. Most of the rest are shrubs and herbs, and most of them are medicinal. And
Mm-hmm.
there are a huge potential in the Caribbean to study plants to help people to heal themselves. So that's the reason now I am promoting Caribbean biodiversity. I am promoting Haiti biodiversity and see how people can reconnect again with nature.
Oh, William, you're singing my song, as they say, because I share everything that you just described for us. It's really very important that we recognize the fact that we are a known biodiversity hotspot in terms of, what we read in of data sets. It suggests that we are one of the top biodiversity hotspots globally. And I think you mentioned it that we have areas where the degree of endemicity is so high that we cannot afford to, let that slip from our grasp. And we must explore it because not only do we have issues of what we may want to call health justice, but certainly issues of food security, that some of these endemic species, may be of value for further exploration. What is your thinking on that?
Yes, it's really important for people to know that because when
Hmm.
I grow up, I didn't know their biodiversity.
Hmm.
I think they are weeds. We have to remove them and
Yeah.
we have to burn them. So because now you and I, we are learning and we are aware about that. We want to let the whole people to understand that. But a lot of people doesn't know about what we are saying. The fact that um the Caribbean is not only a huge hotspot, but culturally it's a huge hotspot as well. Because
Hmm.
most of us, when we came, most of us come from Africa and a huge but diverse continent where they used to use medicinal plants for the treatment to eat everything like that. So when we came here in the Caribbean, from everywhere from Africa, we came with a lot of the way we used to use planter in Africa. So we come in a place where there is a huge biodiversity of plants, and we continue to share that. So you can see, for example, people in Belize and people in Haiti, we use plants in different way because we come from different places. So what is very hard today is because when I was at university or at school, they did a course of botany for me, but the course it was theoretical botany course. It's talking about sepal, petals, or flowers, or cells, things like that. But they never teach me about, hey, this is medicinal plant. We
Hmm.
use it to when we have some disease to cure ourselves. So
Yeah.
we don't really value that.
Yeah.
So now we are really disconnected my generation and the next generation. So I feel I have a responsibility
Yeah.
to not stay quiet. That's the
Yeah.
reason you said to me when invite me, and I say yes, I want to be because I feel so embarrassed, painful for my kids that's growing
Yeah.
up right now. They don't know anything. They don't want to eat anything related with plants. So that's really a big disaster for the health
Yeah.
for my generation and the next generation. So we need to continue to see how we can unite us together and
Hmm.
trade plants, the use of plants different way and not using them in appropriate way, but using them and thinking about conservation of them because our life depend on them.
Oh. Very beautifully said, William. I share in all of your underpinning philosophy and that responsibility that you made mention of certainly is a guiding force for me as well, because I think it is important that we let our stakeholders understand the value of the resource as we are here discussing. The Biocultural Education and Research Program has actually taken the position that we should convey the value, the cultural value, the biocultural value, the medicinal value in ways that our stakeholders can, um, you know, synthesize easier, because I find some things that we speak to our audience, but we are not engaging them properly. One of the tools that we have developed to offer that reconnection that you referenced is a beautiful heritage coloring book. And this coloring book is just not a coloring book, it really is a learning tool. And we have a junior version and an adult version. And we selected 14 of our plants. This is the first one in a series, but we selected the 14 of our plants that are of significant biocultural value in Barbados and shared across the Caribbean as well, because Barbados on its own has low endemicity, but it will share some endemic species, that could be brought from one position to another. And that book has the images of the
Hmm.
plants, where the flowers are were available for the artists to have them defined. So they're learning about the morphological features of the plant. As they color, they're making a reconnection or a connection. And then we also have a prose that accompanies the plant, and that prose carries a bit of the history of the plant, a bit of the geographical distribution, and also, of course, the heritage value in terms of how our ancestors used the plants, where we thought it a good time to introduce that, or even how in modern times the plant has been relevant to families and villages. So that is one strategy that we're using for public outreach. So I'm wondering if you could share with us some of the strategies that you have been engaging in as you were managing your garden space.
Congratulations for this book and with all the illustration that you have in it. And
Thank you.
it is not only for adult to say it's a for junior as well. That's powerful because I feel there is a disconnection with our ancestor, the past generation, with my generation, and the next generation. So the way you are doing it, it's powerful because nowadays our kids, they are mostly focusing on their phone or
Mhm.
the technology. They are really not really connected. So what I did in Kai Botanical Garden, I study the history of botany, and I
Mhm.
see that until 19th centuries, most of the doctors are botanists. They use plant to treat people when they are sick. The Kai Botanical Garden, when I started, we have a mission to connect people with nature. But now, in 2023, I did a lot of travel, watching a lot of videos, podcasts, listen to podcasts, watching documentaries, read books on botany, and I changed our mission. We say we want Kai Botanical Garden to be a center, a reference center to teach people about plants in order to contribute to the human health and
Mhm.
the natural health.
Mhm.
Why human health? So most of the people now in my country, even in every country, like Barbados, United States, everywhere. So we have some chronic illness. And most of the chronic illness that we have today, it's connected with the way we are eating, the way we are thinking, and where we are living. So we want Kai Botanical Garden to be a place where a person has a diabetes, and we say, okay, if you have diabetes, this is this kind of research they did. This is what we know before in ethnobotany. So we want to collect data because we receive every year like 20 to 50,000 people to visit the garden. We don't want them to see the garden only for the beauty. We want them to see the garden as a place. If they have a health issue, they can come in the garden. We will talk to them about phytotherapy. We will talk about them naturopath, something like related to nature. And right now we are building a part of the garden. We call it meditation garden. We want people sometimes when they are living in a small house or in a crowding place, so they cannot think well. But if they are with nature and the garden, they will think better. So that's the part of the garden focusing nowadays really on educating people about plants, the value of them, and the part for the natural health. So now we are really degraded. The deforestation in Haiti is huge. But
Mhm.
to save or to give a solution of to protect the nature in Haiti, so we need scientists, we need data, we need information. Most of the big NGO, when they are coming in my country, they just use the fast growing plant, the exotic species, and they plant them everywhere. And after
Mhm.
you don't see them, and they compete with the local diversity of native and endemic. Now we want to teach people, the government, the NGO, hey, there are a lot of there are the plants that are native to the region, and they gave us the what we call resilience against climate change, natural disaster. We have to protect them.
Mhm.
And our region is a very it's a place where we are facing a lot of difficulties like hurricane, earthquake. 2016, we had a big hurricane in Lake where located the garden. So all the house down mostly. So people hurt. So to save them, they don't have hospital to go. They use plants they have around them. And we recently have a big earthquake. So the same thing happened. So people are hurt and they use the medicinal plant. So I want my people nowadays, not in Haiti, but in all the Caribbean and all the world, understand the importance of ecosystem. When we destroy our diversity in the ecosystem, we reduce our resilience to face some big disaster. So it's something really holistic. That's not only when you talk biodiversity, it's for human, for the nature. So without that, it's impossible to think for a good environment for our next generation.
Fantastic. Well said. I don't
Thank
think
you.
there's any more I could add to that. We know that the data that is reflective of the impact of climate change is very much suggesting that small island developing states are going to bear the major brunt from the outfall of climate change, global warming. And here in the Caribbean, as you have mentioned, we have started to see that with the increase in the intensity of hurricanes because of the warming of the ocean. We've also seen that these hurricanes are intensifying at a rate that weather models cannot even predict. So, it is so vital that we become players in terms of where we're headed in the future. And one of the other notable outfalls of climate change and global warming is biodiversity loss. And unless we know what is there now, we would not know what we're losing. I was on a panel recently making reference to the idea of the Caribbean being a hotspot of biodiversity. But in all, metrics, I'm not sure that we understand really how hot we are in terms of what is the true value of that endemicity we have in the Caribbean. And before we lose it, we therefore have to, make sure that conservation strategies are put in place. And even more, as you said, we need to have our stakeholders, our people, be aware of this value so that they can also become invested. So, William, you are speaking it all. And I read recently that you were made a research associate at the Marie Selby Botanical Garden. So, what type of research are you hoping to get involved while you are at that post?
Well, thank you. At Selby, I am associate researcher at Selby.
Mhm.
And there is a famous botanist there called John Clark.
Mhm.
He went to Haiti to do research. But we just noticed that in the Caribbean, before we have a huge scientists working on research on the Caribbean, but now there is a lack of people involved, young people involving. So what I'm doing with Selby is we are working right now on a program to teach not only botany, we want to teach biodiversity and restoration and conservation. So we are developing some program for young people to come to Selby Kai Botanical Garden with Dominican Republic. We started discussing Cuba and other regions in the Caribbean to see how we can raise awareness about that. The knowledge of botany is in process of disappearing. The moment we really, really, really need it, with all what you describe and with the climate change, all the deconnection. So what we want to do, we want to see how we can involve more young people in that. So we will have, the Caribbean has something we call botanic bridge. The botanic bridge, it's a all the botanical garden, not botanical garden only, but some parks. But if they are doing some research, they are doing some education program, we meet every 2 years to discuss about conservation. And for the next February, uh, 10 to 14, we will have a big meeting there. So there we there is recently a strategy for the Caribbean country for a plant conservation that's called GSPC. We just finished with it. We will discuss it in Colombia, that will happen in Colombia, to see how we will have other people. That's the reason I want you to be in that. We want to see other countries in the Caribbean where they speak French, because there is a barrier in the Caribbean. Some countries speak Spanish, English, French. So, but it's make it a little bit difficult to, you need us to work out together,
Yeah.
and we face the same situation. So we are inviting people from the French countries as well to join us. So what we want to do, it's like a leadership position to work on how me, as a person who speaks Spanish, because I study in Dominican Republic, I understand a little bit English and I speak French. So how we can unite us together and see what we can do together. That's my really role in the on the Selby Botanical Garden, involved in what doing in the Caribbean.
Yeah. Really great ideas. There's we're always stronger together.
Yes.
I was trying to find another way to say that, but simply put, we know that we're always stronger together. And I spoke with recently Dr. Terry Allendorf, who is head of an organization called Community Conservation in the US.
Mm.
And when I spoke to her, actually, she was the first person interviewed for this series of the Herbal Spot. And that came up in our discussion as well. The need for a network so that we know what is happening in the Caribbean, and hence, work together to fill the gaps in terms of knowledge, to fill the gaps in terms of awareness of our public, and just to, sort of try to work to a critical mass in terms of having underground activities which are centered, um, with a focus on conservation of our plant resource. So we are ready. We are ready, William, and I'm hoping that we can indeed participate at the conference in Colombia, because that would be an amazing setting. And maybe we can also extend an invitation to Dr. Allendorf, because I think that her organization has been working many areas across the world, and I think that they probably would have an interest in looking at seeing how a network, you know, could be catalyzed. So I believe that we probably may have to interview you on a second segment of the Herbal Spot, because you're doing such fascinating and important things that you will want to, share that with our audience. But I want to maybe get a little closer now to the use of plants for medicine. And here in Barbados, we have found that there are maybe around 100 of our plants found locally that have been used or are still being used for their medicinal value. Now, Barbados was the unfortunate outpost, one can say, for the Atlantic slave trade, in that, we lay most easterly, and the issue around bringing our people from Africa, and also distributing them across the Caribbean, Barbados would have been a center for that type of activity. In addition, because our island is flat and easily manipulated, we lost a lot of our standing plant biodiversity, loss of habitats, and that has also led to us having a not very diverse fauna on the island as well. But I'm raising that in terms of the issue of the plants that we have available for medicine. Many of them are found across the Caribbean, and on island we only have two endemic species, and they are not noted to be part of the tradition of using plants for medicine. So I'm wondering if you could identify maybe two or three of the plants in Haiti that sort of bubble to the top of the tradition of using plants for medicine.
Yes, thank you so much. And I think you discuss about the gaps. So we really need to work together to raise awareness, to have a common understanding about what you're doing and
Mhm.
what I am doing, because what you are doing today is very important for me when you invite me in this podcast.
Yes.
That's a huge opportunity for me to invite other people to join us in the Caribbean a Congress to continue to discuss about conservation. So if some people in your want to join, that will be very fantastic. There is some scholarship for that too. They will support traveling and something like that.
Oh,
But
that's fantastic.
yes, for Haiti, when we are talking about medicinal plants, all our life depend on medicinal plants. There is a plant, there is an asteraceae. They call it langlichat. The langlichat, it's when people in Haiti, they have flu, they just go and take it for the flu. And all the people knows that it's very important. But only in Haiti, we have more than 10 plants that's native that we use as medicinal plants. And there are other plants called guayaba, Pisidium guayaba. It's a plant that you use in Haiti when you have diarrhea. They just go and take the leaves and boil it and make it tea with it, or they eat the food. This is a plant that you use in Haiti a lot. But we don't use only plants for medicinal, but cultural things. For example, there is something in Haiti. They say if you are a zombie, it's like a person. They did something, some voodoo did something to them. There is a plant called jatropha. They say if a person is a zombie, you can use the jatropha. You touch it 3 times, or the person will change the mind. All of that are very useful, and people are talking about that in Haiti. So there are other plants, and the family called Anacardiaceae. Anacardiaceae is a family where we find a mango. But there is a genus called Comocaladia. Comocaladia, it's a really huge toxic plant. That's the reason I say it. Nowadays, it's not only knowing the plants, how to use them, but you have to know as well which one are toxic. But all the animals knows that. You take a bird, he knows this plant is toxic. Whatever, any kind of animals. So it is a human being today by disconnecting with them, so we don't know which is good for us, what is not good for us. So we have more than 2,000 endemic species, so it's a huge, but sincerely, we don't know anything about it. For
Mm.
now, few of them, less than 5% we know the use of them, where they are. We don't really focus on conservation. So that's the reason I want really, as I said that before, not be shy. So I want to post on Facebook, post on LinkedIn, participate in podcasts, and let people know about plants, because I see Jesus Christ, or people can say the nature. Sometimes then there is a kind of people, when you have it for a generation, you can have 10 years, 20 years, or 15 years, you don't have this kind of person. If today I am a forester, I am a botanist, I am an entrepreneur, so I am here, Jesus put me in this position for a reason. So I have to take this advantage to talk. So that's the reason we want to really help people to understand today, our future, our life, it depends on plants. We need to do them. We need to talk about that everywhere in order for people to understand the importance of them.
Yes. Um, when I was talking about the period during slavery, my research into that aspect demonstrated that there was a particular family, the Euphorbiaceae, that was turned to when dealing with the need for wound healing, when dealing with skin issues, skin eruptions, when dealing maybe with intestinal issues. The Euphorbiaceae was turned to, as well as other plants like aloes. Actually, aloe vera was being,
Yes.
um, put into agriculture by our indigenous peoples and our enslaved people from Africa. They were working together, growing aloes, and I think whether it was the whole plants or the gel from the plants that was being distributed across the Caribbean as well. So there's a lot of history, William, that we need to share. And here in Barbados, we have um, there's our National Botanical Garden that is in development, but there's been a garden here established, I believe, from in the 1950s by Iris Banuki. It's the Andromeda Botanic Gardens. It's a beautifully biodiverse, well curated garden, or rather group of gardens. And we were fortunate to work with the curator, the current curator, Sharon Cook, to establish an ethnobotanical space within the wider Andromeda Botanic Gardens. And in that ethnobotanical space, our focus is on the installation of plants that were of significance as documented during the period of slavery, 1600s through to the 1800s. And, wherever we can, as you said, we work on making our public aware, and we do conduct tours in the ethnobotanical garden specifically. The entire garden, of course, is always open and welcome to visitors, but we make a special effort to have a program on the ethnobotanical garden where we do tours through the garden and we explain the history and the medicinal significance of each species. So I'm corroborating your ideas and the importance of these strategies and the importance of engaging our public. Um, this has been great talking to you, William. I cannot express this enough because when I began to see you sharing on social media, which you're quite right, is an avenue to reach our target public. I, not being from Haiti, was still intrigued because I knew of the high degree of endemicity you do have. And as you said, you have maybe 2,000 plus species. And so it was very interesting for me to see you post about these plants. And some of them we actually do have um, here in Barbados. There were some common ones. And like I said, even though Barbados has low endemicity for the island, it has a lot of Caribbean species. So this has been great, William. I want to wish you well as you continue to do your work. I am wishing you also well for the further development of your botanical garden and your outreach and enrichment programs. And in your research associate portfolio, I also see that you're doing amazing things. So anything you would like to leave with us as we close off our segment today? And I know that in the future I will have you back as our guest on the Herbal Spot.
Yes, thank you so much, Sonia, for inviting me in this podcast to talk about plants in the Caribbean and Haiti, what we can do together. And you inspire me. Sometimes I it's been a long time I want to do something kind of like that to for Haitian, but I skipped putting it like procrastinating. So what you are doing here is so powerful. You inspire me to move forward. And the last thing I want to say to all the listeners is that we are inviting them, so I will share the link with you for the conference that we will have in Colombia in order to discuss about the Caribbean conservation, plant conservation. So we'll be happy to have people from Barbados, from everywhere in the Caribbean to sit down together and think to see how we can come up with a common strategy for plant conservation in the region. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You are most welcome, William. And I will share that link once you send it to me when we are releasing our podcast. I'll share the link and I look forward to working with you in the future. Do take
Thank
care.
you so much.